Hello everyone, now I'm back to follow the story of One Piece. In the previous episode, Luffy's group was tricked and almost entirely captured by Mr. 3 and Mr. 5. Even the giant Brogy was captured because Mr. 3 can make his wax as hard as steel. Mr. 3 once ate a special fruit called the wax fruit, which gave him the special ability to produce waxed sculptures in any shape. The technique Mr. 3 likes to use most is the candle lock, where he uses his wax to create light shackles to capture his hostages. Then he unleashed another super move that looked very powerful. Just the initial form of it made Vivi's hair stand on end from fear, but when the final form was revealed, it was just a cake made of wax. After that, they took Zoro, Nami, and Vivi to decorate their cake. At that moment, Zoro tried to stab the cake with his sword, but it couldn't penetrate. A little later, they noticed wax particles fallen on them, and Mr. 5 told them he wanted to turn them into wax sculptures. As for the giant Brogy, after learning that Mr. 3 and Mr. 5 were the ones who secretly put explosives in the giant Dory's drink, he was furious and struggled until he broke free. But sadly, the giant Dory couldn't withstand Mr. 5's booger attack. Looking at Usopp and Luffy, they were still stuck and couldn't move, but they hadn't lost hope yet. Luckily, the clever duck Karu thought of digging the ground to free Luffy. Back to Mr. 3, after seeing the giant Brogy escape from his wax earlier, he got angry and used his wax to trap the giant Brogy's arms and legs again, this time pinning him to the ground, causing the giant Brogy immense pain. Turning to Nami, she started to choke on the wax particles because more and more of them were entering her lungs. And a moment later, her hand also started turning into wax. At that moment, Mr. 3 laughed with great joy, seeing his art of creating wax sculptures from real people about to be completed. Then, Zoro drew his sword, wanting to cut off his own legs to free himself and continue fighting. At first, Mr. 3 and Mr. 5 thought Zoro was joking, but from his words and expression, he was serious. Zoro said if he stayed still, he would surely die, so struggling was his only chance to live. Then, just as Zoro was about to cut off his own legs, Luffy arrived with Usopp and the duck Karu just in time to stop him. Seeing this, Vivi and Nami were very happy, and Nami angrily told Luffy to beat up the guy with the number 3 hairstyle until he was unrecognizable. As Luffy got closer, he was most interested in the one with the number 3 hairstyle. Oh, what a hairstyle! And it's on fire! Then Nami noticed that Zoro's leg was bleeding. And Zoro said it was nothing, it was just halfway cut. Then Zoro raised a sword and stood handsomely. When Nami asked, he replied that if he were to become a sculpture, he'd want to stand like that to look cool. Now it was time for Luffy to fight against Mr. 3. And Usopp, who was usually all talk, volunteered to go first on Karu. But as soon as he saw Mr. 3 produce wax from his hands, Usopp and the duck Karu quickly hid behind, saying he would help by shooting from a distance. Later, the fight began with Mr. 3 using his candle lock technique to trap Luffy. But Luffy noticed that the shackle on his leg was heavy and hard. So he stretched his arm and wrapped it around the giant Brogy's horn several times to gain more speed, and he was able to use the shackle on his leg to break the pillar of the cake. At that moment, Luffy didn't realize that doing so made the situation worse because the spinning top above was falling closer to his friends, causing them to turn into wax statues even faster. The fight continues as Usopp secretly shoots an explosive pellet at Mr. 3, but Mr. 5 used his mouth to catch the pellet and swallow it, letting it explode inside his stomach. Meanwhile, Luffy continued to fight fiercely with Mr. 3, and in the end, he managed to land a punch on Mr. 3. Then, when Luffy had a chance to save his friends, he surprisingly said he didn't feel like helping. Hearing this, everyone was confused as to why Luffy would say such a thing. Upon closer inspection, they saw that he was under a spell. The one who cast the spell on Luffy at that time was a little girl named Miss Golden Week, who is Mr. 3's assistant. She can cast spells on people by painting colors. The black color that Luffy was standing on is called the color of betrayal. It makes Luffy feel like betraying his friends. At that moment, Vivi, who used to work for Baroque Works, knew that to deal with that color, you had to say the opposite, and she shouted to Luffy that he didn't need to come help them. Upon hearing that, Luffy felt the urge to help and stepped out of the black circle. Then, as Luffy was about to go help his friends, Miss Golden Week painted a yellow color on Luffy's back, which made him laugh happily because he wasn't angry anymore. While Luffy was laughing happily, Zoro estimated that they had less than 5 minutes before they would turn into wax statues. Cutting to Usopp, he and the duck Karu were running away from Mr. 5 and Valentine. As they ran around, they accidentally bumped into Luffy, wiping the paint off his back. Now that Luffy was free from the spell, he had no time to waste and quickly used his Gum Gum bazooka to save his friends. But instead, he hit the red circle that Miss Golden Week had drawn on the ground. Then Miss Golden Week painted a green color on Luffy's back, which made Luffy become her friend. Cutting to Usopp, he is currently riding Karu, running away from Mr. 5 and Valentine. Karu is a very fast duck and good at dodging, making it impossible for Mr. 5 and Valentine to catch them. After escaping, Usopp returned to help his friends. But when he arrived, he felt heartbroken because his friends had all turned into wax statues. As for Luffy, he was sitting and having tea with Miss Goldenweek, acting indifferent, and upon seeing this, Usopp pulled out his slingshot and shot to set Luffy on fire. At that moment, Mr. 5 and Valentine also arrived, and Mr. 5 used his boger to burn and injure Usopp. Then we see that Luffy has come to his senses, because earlier Usopp shot him only to burn off his shirt. At the same time, Mr. 3 also arrived there with his strongest armor. After Miss Goldenweek finished painting his armor, the fight between Mr. 3 and Luffy began. At that time, they clashed for a short while. And with Mr. 3's special armor, Luffy had a very hard time doing anything to him. At that moment, Usopp remembered that Mr. 3's weapon is wax, and wax can never beat fire, so he wanted to shoot a fire pellet to destroy the cake, but Mr. 5 shot first to block it. Then Usopp thought of another method, which was to have the duck Karu carry a rope and run around to encircle the cake. And at that moment, Miss Valentine also asked to join the fun. She sat on Usopp's back and changed her weight little by little to torture him. Soon, the duck Karu had finished wrapping the rope around the cake and the rope was oily. Then Usopp shouted for Luffy to grab the flame on Mr. 3's head and use it to burn the rope to save their friends. In the end, they successfully burned the cake, and the fire also burned Mr. 3's armor. When all was lost, Mr. 3 and Miss Goldenweek ran away into the forest. As for Valentine, she refused to give up, still wanting to use her weight-changing technique to jump on Usopp and kill him. But then, Nami and Vivi jumped out of the fire to save him in time. Now, the enemy team only has Mr. 5 left, and he rushed to grab Usopp as a hostage. But this time, Zoro jumped out of the fire to save him instead. Turning to Luffy, he was chasing after Mr. 3, not letting him escape. When he reached a certain place, Luffy saw many Mr. 3s, most of whom were wax figures. At that moment, Luffy stood and watched for a moment, and then he knew which one was the real person and kicked him with a gum-gum kick. After Mr. 3 fell, they saw Miss Goldenweek packing her things and trying to run away. But at that moment, the duck Karu did not spare her. Then the story cuts to Sandy, who is on the boat waiting for his friends. And after waiting for too long without seeing them, he decided to go look for them. At that time, he found Mr. 3's white room in the forest. And when he went in to look, there was no one there, only a table for tea and a basket at the edge of the wall. And inside the basket was a snail-shaped phone that Mr. 3 used to contact his boss, Mr. 0. At that moment, Mr. 0 called, and Sanji picked up the phone, pretending to be Mr. 3. He lied to Mr. 0, saying that Luffy's group and Vivi were dead, so Mr. 0 wouldn't have to bother hunting them down anymore. At that time, Mr. 0 arranged for Mr. 3 to go work in Alabasta and told him that he would send 2 of his agents to bring him the eternal log of Alabasta. Before he could finish his sentence, Mr. 0 agent arrived. And when they saw that Sanji was not Mr. 3, they started to attack Sanji. But please feel sorry for them. Even though they had guns, they were no match for Sanji's legs. After dealing with them, Sanji picked up the eternal log of Alabasta, which means they can now travel to Alabasta. Returning to Luffy's group, everything was over now, and the giant Brogy was crying and deeply regretting the giant Dory. At that moment, surprisingly, the giant Dory was not dead yet. The reason why the giant Dory survived was because the axe that hit him was not very sharp, and the reason why the axe was not very sharp was because they had been fighting for over 100 years, so the axe blade was dull. Then Sanji made his way to that place. You bastard! You took a whole day and didn't come to help, you only came after it was over. And the person he was most interested in was Nami. He thought Nami looked beautiful in that outfit. But cover up with a jacket first so you don't catch a cold. Later, Sanji told them about his phone call with Mr. 0 and show his friends the eternal pose pointing to Alabasta. This made them very happy, especially Princess Vivi. Actually, the one who was most excited at that moment was Sanji. Then they said goodbye to the 2 giants and returned to their ship. When they arrived, Zoro and Sanji were still arguing about who caught the bigger animal. At that moment, they wouldn't quiet down until Nami threatened them to get on the ship. Then, as they set sail, the 2 giants stood on either side of the path to see them off. Actually, the 2 giants knew that there was danger ahead, and they told Luffy to sail straight ahead. No matter what he encountered, he must not turn the helm. A little while after they left the island, a giant fish with a huge mouth appeared, waiting to welcome them. And because Luffy trusted the words of the 2 giants, he sailed straight ahead. Even into the mouth of the fish, he did not retreat. At that time, his crew members also gave him some advice, telling him not to believe the giants. But because Luffy is the captain of this ship, they have to follow him. Then the 2 giants transferred their elemental power into their 2 weapons and used a special technique they called Hakoku to open a path to free Luffy's ship from inside the giant fish's belly. For this story, I will end it here for now. Thank you all for following this story with me. If you think this story is good, please don't forget to like and comment. Also, for those who haven't subscribed to the Mono Ujoranai channel yet, please subscribe and click the bell icon and select all. Thank you once again, and I wish you good health and a bright future.